But here's the deal. I've had experiences in my life that I can't explain. I've had 3 experiences in my life that petrified me, literally scared me so bad I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe. He says, "You mean Bigfoot, Uncle Jerry?" And I said, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, Travis, that's what I'm talking about." He says, "There's 2 of them on the lease."
What?
He sends me a picture from Caddo Lake, which is not too far from there.
Caddo Lake?
He sends me a picture of an 18-inch footprint from Caddo Lake. He says, "Uncle Jerry, there's 2 of them on this property." He says, "They throw rocks at me.
Oh.
They follow me out of the lease." He says, "And you can hear them out there."
All right, Bigfoot Society, we've got the privilege of talking to Mr. Jerry Lancaster from Colorado Springs, Colorado. How's it going today, Jerry?
I'm doing good. It's pretty rainy tonight, lots of thunder, so you might hear that in the background. But it's a good day.
I love it. That'll be a good ambiance for sure. So, Jerry, we were talking a little bit before I hit record, and you've got quite the background. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what kind of things you've been into over the years?
First off, full disclosure, like we talked about, I'm not a Bigfoot researcher. I'm an amateur researcher. When I get interested in something, I will research it to death. I've just always been a curiosity of mine. My background, as a merchant marine, a firefighter, a gold miner. People today call it bushcraft. Back in the day, we just called it backcountry. I did a lot of that as a kid. Today, I'm a professional chef. I switched careers as a professional electrician to become a professional chef. That's what I do today. What else? I'm a member of life safety I belong to a church here in town. It's a pretty big church. I'm a member of life safety there, where I fulfill duties as a first responder and a member of security. Outside of that, that's pretty much it. And I'm nervous as I can be. I got to be crazy doing this, I swear, because this stuff just. So basically, let me take you back to that photograph I sent you of me when I was about 24 years old. And just to show you, I'm not playing around. This is me at 24. And that was on Maxwell's Creek on Lake McClure in Northern California. I was a member of about a 5 or 6 man team. We were amateur gold miners. We spent a lot of time up in the backcountry. Because here's the deal. If you want to find gold, you can't pull over and just go pan for it. There's lots of gold out in those mountains, but you got to go back where nobody's been for at least 200-300 years. At least, get back to where people haven't been. And so that's what we did a lot of. And I said all that to say this. I was in a place just east of Coulterville. If you look it up on the map, Coult, Coulterville, very old mining town. I was back in a place called Dogtown. If you look up on a USGS quadrangle of the Buckhorn quadrangle, you'll find Cat Town right there. It's an old mining settlement. Ruins are still there. But I was up there on my own, as I did a lot. We used to go back and scout places that we could mine, actively mine, placer mine, high bank. Now this is probably about 7 miles back from Coulterville. It's quite a ways. Once you get to Cat Town, you park and you basically start working your way to the backside of Yosemite National Park. And in this area, there's a big canyon right there. The Tuolumne River, which comes out of Yosemite, runs right through that. That's one of the tributaries that feeds Maxwell's Creek. And I was back there, we called it dinking. And that just means go down the creek to see if you find any color. If we find color, if we find really good color, we'll all come back and work that area. You have to forgive me, man. So I'm back there. Now, at that time, again, about 24, I'm about 170 pounds. That's about a 45-pound rucksack that I always carried with me. So I'm camped out not too far from the canyon. And shit. I'm the only one back there. I know this for a fact. The road, the logging road I took in used to be an old mining road. The Bondurant mine is off that road. It's a dead-end canyon road. It goes down by Rattlesnake Gulch, and it just dead ends right there. There's only one way in, one way out. And I'm in my tent, and I bedded down on some pine needles where the pine needles are thick. And you can find areas where the pine needles are just 6-8 inches thick. I bedded down there for the night, had this little old school Boy Scout style slip into it tent. And it's got, I don't know what time it was, man. It's got to be probably like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. It's definitely middle of the night. And I'm just going to say right now, I don't know what it was. Okay. But it was clearly on 2 feet. I know what I sound like at 170 plus 40 pounds on those pine needles. Whatever it was way, way bigger than me. It woke me up. Now, the pine needles weren't all dry. That was springtime, so it's there, you know. But I know what that sounds like. I know what other things sound like in those woods. And whatever it was, it came in from like the area of the road, and it walked around my tent like 3 times. And I was laying there. I used to have a Colt Pioneer 22 long rifle caliber pistol. That's what I carried with me back in those days. I've had encounters with mountain lions and black bears and shit back there. So I always carried something I could scare them off with. I never carried heavy weapons back then. And I'm laying there with this pistol on my chest and my thumbs on the hammer. And I'm thinking, if that zipper moves, I'm going to fan off 5 shots. It scared the living shit out of me. And the weirdest part of that whole deal is I heard it walk away. And as it cleared this little clearing I was in with the pine needles, it got off into the bush, and it was making a little bit more noise. It was very quiet. It was trying to be quiet, you can tell. But the weird part was it didn't walk like back toward the road, back where civilization's back that way. No, it walked toward the canyon, toward the backside of Yosemite. And that freaked me. I'm trying not to cuss, man. It freaked me the hell out. And at some point, I finally fell asleep. As soon as the sun popped over that saddle, I was like, I'm out of here. And now here's the deal, man. Bigfoot's a guy in a monkey suit. That's what I was told. That's what I knew. Bob Hieronymus and the whole deal. And yeah. So back then, as a recreational gold miner, I'm thinking this has got to be a claim jumper. It's got to be a tweaker, something. It's got to be something. It scared me enough that be like, you know, going through my 24-year-old mind, I'm like, who the hell is out here at this hour of the morning, walking around my tent and then walking that way? That's nuts. I never could figure that out. And over time, you know, so I packed up that morning, obviously, and got the hell out of there. I told Paul about it, And he was like, oh, it must have been a claim jumper or something. And I'm going, dude, no, this was a big ass claim jumper if it was a claim jumper. Because that shit still goes on back there. There's still plenty of gold back in those hills. And there's people that will rob you. And there ain't nothing you can do about it back there.
This story is extremely fascinating so far. You had told me how old you are in an earlier email, and I just want to make sure the listeners have what time period this took place. And this was like early 90s, right?
Yeah, I'm 55 now, so do the math. I was about 24 back then.
Yes, it was about 92-ish, around there. Okay.
Yeah. And so, we eventually, the group broke up and I got married, had a family, all that good stuff, became a firefighter, merchant marine, all that good stuff. And so fast forward to the pandemic. Now, I've been a political junkie my whole life. I follow politics. I watch politicians. But during the pandemic, everything was getting so nuts. I was like, I'm done. I got to find something to listen to at work. And so I start scrolling through podcasts. I find Sasquatch Chronicles. And I thought, well, that looks interesting. So I heard the first couple of, stories, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. And then I heard one, this dude told my story. And I've heard people tell my story on your podcast. And what I call it is the tent creeper. That's what I called it back then, the tent creeper. I've man. But here's the deal. I've had experiences in my life that I can't explain. I've had 3 experiences in my life that petrified me, literally scared me so bad I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe. The tent creeper was one of them. I don't, I could have wet myself at any point at that. That's how scary that shit was. The other stuff is a talk for another day. But so I start, I start thinking about that, and that memory comes back full force, and I'm like, okay, what the hell is this Bigfoot thing? And I live in Colorado Springs, and I've been up to Pikes Peak, and I've seen the Bigfoot crossing sign, and Bigfoot is all over this place. So I start kind of looking into it. I'm listening to Wes and all these, firsthand accounts and all this stuff. But then I start hearing from people that I can relate to a little bit. And that's like Dr. Meldrum, Bender Nagel. And I'm starting to look at this from a purely skeptical point of view. So I'm not looking, oh crap, how do I even talk about this journey I've been on? Barbara Ketchum, that whole deal was just, well, crap. Let's put it this way. Bender Nagel once said, he said, if one person tells you to see the Jolly Green Giant, you can dismiss that. But if 10 people tell you they saw the Jolly Green Giant, you might want to look into it. So at that time, during the pandemic, of course, I had time on my hands. I'm a construction worker at that time, electrician, not doing a whole lot of stuff. So I start digging. Now, as an experienced backcountry guy, I know that cartography is one of my favorite subjects. So I know how animals move. I know how, so basically I start looking into it. Okay. So if that's what that was around my tent that night, then we're talking about a mammal. Okay. Possibly 800 to 900 pounds. bipedal, walks on 2 feet. We're talking about something about the size of a bear, and not an inland grizzly, not a brown coastal brown bear, not a polar bear, because that's actually considered a marine mammal. It's not actually classified as a bear. You got the inland grizzly, the coastal brown, you got the Kodiak. So we're talking about something about the size of a Kodiak. Now, if this thing's real, and if it's up here in Colorado Springs, Pikes Peak region, then first thing we got to figure out is why it won't work. As a researcher, why wouldn't it work? Well, this thing's big. It's going to have a hell of a calorie intake. It's going to have the fauna. It's going to have the availability. So this is crazy, but just on a hunch, I looked up Dr. Meldrum, right? Called the number on the website. He picked up the phone.
Really?
I'm not.
That's awesome, man.
God is my witness on my children's health. He picked up the phone. I introduced myself. I said, look, I'm just looking into this thing. And I told him a real quick snapshot of why I'm looking into this. And the biggest thing I wanted to know was, the calorie intake on this thing's got to be huge. 5,000 calories per day minimum. In the fall, 20,000 calories. That's a feeding frenzy. Now, we need 2,000 calories a day. Now, something that big, it's going to need way more calories per day. But here's the deal. It's not going to get it all in one shot. Even bears will graze on grass. And when they get the occasional elk, they're going to snag it, because that's where the calorie punch is. That's called hyperphagia. That's a feeding frenzy in the fall that bears will go through. So when I'm looking at this thing, I got to look at it as a bear, because that's how big it is. But we've also got this part about, is it more like us, more like a monkey? So now we got to start looking at primates, large primates, high altitude primates. Now we got to get into Dian Fossey, Jane Goodall. So, Fossey, when Fossey, and let me just preface this by saying that these high mountain gorillas in this ancient volcanic valley, science back then said there's no possible way. Gorillas live in the jungle. Until this young English soldier, he was a military guy. Wish I had my notes right here. But he shot one, brought it down. These gorillas were living above 10,000 feet. Science said that could not possibly be. Now you got my curiosity. So, wind the clock forward there, and you've got Dian Fossey worked with these gorillas for 2 years before the first one would actually break cover and expose itself. And the crazy part is, if you go back and look at the footage, you'll see these gorillas peeking behind trees, kind of doing this number. And I thought that was really interesting, because as I'm listening to this anecdotal evidence, I'm thinking that's exactly what these people are seeing. Okay?
I'm thinking that sounds really familiar.
Okay, so
yeah,
we're on the right path.
Oh, yeah.
So we got this higher primate above 10,000 feet. Science said it couldn't exist, right? So, and obviously, if you're looking at Goodall's work, you got to look at. I'm sorry, if you're looking at Fossey's work, you have to look at Goodall's work. And so I've got an article here I want to share with you. Mark Birdsall is a reporter with the Huron Daily Tribune. A couple of things that I really found interesting about Goodall, which she studied chimpanzees. She chronicled the chimpanzee war. And if you want to really look at something crazy, look at the chimpanzee wars. How these groups of chimpanzees in these different regions actually planned murders, overthrows. I mean, it was like watching humans overthrow humans. Goodall chronicled all of that. But here's the thing I wanted to say. Once, and this is a quote, once while Goodall was on an expedition deep in the Ecuadorian rainforest, she instructed her interpreter to ask local hunters about monkeys with no tails. They replied they had seen such creatures, who said they walked upright and were as tall as an average American male. Now we're going down the rabbit hole at this point, okay? There again, Bigfoot's a guy in a monkey suit. I don't know what happened back then, but the more I'm digging, the more questions I have, the more boxes I make, the more I'm checking. So I keep digging. So now I've talked to Meldrum. I got a hold of Doug Highcheck's people.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it didn't take me long to figure out, based on cartography, that where Highcheck was when they were up here was up in the Lost Creek Wilderness. And that's where they were. If you go back, it was I don't know what the heck it was. I saw the program, but the more I dug, I was like, wait a minute. No, Highcheck's people were up here. That's where they were. We're going to get to that in a second, because this rabbit hole just goes deeper. Now, I believe it was Monster Quest. They came up to Colorado, and what they showed was a couple of guys on horseback, and they were up there around like Lost Church area. There's Lost Creek, there's Lost Campground. What makes that place interesting is there's a creek on there that was named by the early gold miners and people that came up. That's called Monkey Creek. Really? And so I dug on that a little bit. The reason they call it Monkey Creek is because when they were up there messing around, whoever it was, I can't remember. I wish I had more details for you in front of me, but they said they kept seeing monkeys up there. That's why they called it Monkey Creek. It's a dry wash. Man, you can't make this shit up, dude. I'm sorry about that. You can't make this stuff up.
Jerry, don't worry about it, man. You're good.
There's a little comic book shop down in Manitou Springs. It's got a little beer bar in the back, and I used to go down there and shoot, play foosball with my buddy. And there's a Bigfoot store across the street. I'm in there dinking around, looking around, because I'm kind of getting interested in this Bigfoot subject. And I bought one of those hide and seek world champion T-shirts.
Oh yeah, classic. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I go back over. I got the shirt, throw it up on top of the bar, and go back. And me and Mark were playing foosball. And this young lady, I know her and her husband pretty well. They're a young professional couple there. And she looks at the shirt. She goes, "Nice shirt." And I said, "Yeah, it's kind of interested in that subject right now." And she says, "We saw him, Wow. I said, "What do you mean?" "God is my witness. I am not exaggerating, embellishing. This is exactly how it went down." She says, "We saw Bigfoot." And I said, "That's funny." She says, "I'm serious." I said, "You're just saying that because you saw the shirt." She says, "Ask my husband." I'm not going to give their names, but he comes walking in, picks up his beer. He's taking a pull off his beer. I'm like, "Dude, did you see Bigfoot?" He said his beer down. He looked at me. He says, "Yeah." I said, "Come on, you guys are pulling my leg right now." They said, "Jerry, we saw what we saw." I said, "Where'd you see it?" They said, right up there in Green Mountain Falls. And not too far from, you could hike it from Green Mountain Falls to the Bigfoot sign, which is where all the people have seen the Bigfoot in this part of Colorado for God knows how long. She says, "We saw him right there. We were on our way up to this place called Garden of Eden. It's right behind Catamount Reservoir." And I was like, "And?" She says, "It walked across the road in front of us." Now, at this point, I've stopped playing foosball. I forgot about my beer. I'm going, are you telling me the truth?" She says, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, what did it look like?" She said it was huge, massive, like easily 2.5 times a man. She said, "What I remember is it took like 2 or 3 steps to get across from the median across the road Now, so that freaked me out. Now I go home and I'm like, okay, either everybody's lying, yeah,
Right.
either everybody's making shit up, or people, something's going on.
You're going deep.
I'm going deep. I'm telling you, when I get interested in something, I will research it to death.
I love it, man. I'm the same way.
That's what makes me a good cook.
Oh yeah, right. I bet.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm hearing about this Area X, right?
Oh yeah, here we go, Jerry. All right.
Okay, no, this rabbit hole gets way deeper, and I'm again on my children's health. God is my witness. I'm not making any of this up. You can call these people and verify what I'm saying.
Jerry, how deep are we getting? This is awesome.
No, we're getting way deeper.
All right, let's
go. My nephew-in-law, he married my niece, my oldest niece. I won't give his name, but he would probably like to talk to you.
All right.
His name's Travis. He was born and raised here in Colorado. Him and his dad have been bow hunters, as far as I can remember. My son, my two of my sons had rabbit or squirrel for the first time because of Travis. He used to babysit my kids. I was a single father back in those days, but they moved down to Venus, Texas, and he was hunting a lease in Northeast Texas. I wish I could tell you the name of the town that's close to that, but I'm looking at all this research and I'm looking at Google Maps and I'm going, wow, Travis is hunting that huge lease out there. And that's right there in the zone. So on a lark, I call him up. Conversation kind of goes like this. He's like, hey, Uncle Jerry, what's going on? I'm like, hey, Travis. I said, I got a question for you. I said, you're hunting that big lease up there in Northeast Texas. Yes, sir. Yeah. It's a private lease. There's only like 3 or 4 people that are allowed to hunt on this lease. I said, Travis, do you ever hear anything out there or see anything kind of weird? He says, you mean Bigfoot, Uncle Jerry? Dude, I about fell over. I swear to God, my jaw just about fell off. We've never had this conversation. And I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, Travis, that's what I'm talking about. He says, there's 2 of them on the lease.
What?
He sends me a picture from Caddo Lake, which is not too far from there.
Caddo Lake.
He sends me a picture of an 18-inch footprint from Caddo Lake. He says, Uncle Jerry, there's 2 of them on this property. He says, they throw rocks at me. They follow me out of the lease. He said, and then he sends me a picture of this little wooden structure like a teepee. He says they built that because nobody who hunts that lease built that. He says, and you can hear them out there, you know. And I said, Travis, you got to be kidding me, man. I just called you on a lark, just kind of looking at this. So what do you do with that? What do you do with that information? Right? The deeper I dig, the digger I deep, and the crazier this shit's getting. And of course, the whole time in the back of my mind, I'm going back to that night outside of Cat Town. And I'm going, man, what the hell are we dealing with? So now I start looking up like Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization. That dude's really cool. Yep. I look up BFRO, and I'm going to go on record right now. I'm not a big BFRO fan.
Fair enough.
The digger I deeped. Okay, I'm not
right. Right.
Because I've had some experiences that they would be like, no, we can't talk about that. So yeah. So now I'm going, okay, well, what the hell are we dealing with? Now, first off, I got a couple of questions. If this thing's this big, okay. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to talk about this. When I first looked into this, I was on this it was somebody's YouTube page about, Bigfoot in Colorado, and there was this guy that had commented, and he was saying something about having experienced something out here. So I commented on his comment, and he actually got back. He actually texted me back. No, not text me, but messaged me back. And I said, I want to know more. He said, about what? I said, about this Bigfoot thing. He says, he was kind of standoffish. He's like, well, what do you want to know? I said, well, I'm just trying to figure out if this thing's real or, you know. He tells me, and I'm okay with giving away the destination. I'm not trying to prove Bigfoot exists. But he told me a spot on not very far from me at all, probably about 2.5 hours. He said, if you go there, and this is the same area where HIERONYMUS people were. Same damn area. He says, if you go there, he says, I've seen them. There's caves up there. They're there. Oh, man. This guy's an old elk hunter. He had moved back to like Tennessee or some shit like that. And then I ran into like 2 or 3 different people because now I'm wearing the damn T-shirt, right?
That's how you get. That's
just
how
to
you
see,
do it.
just to see. And so I'm wearing the T-shirt around, and I'm going, look, man, this is all I got to do with something happened to me back when I was a kid. And I don't tell you, but I've ran into at least 4 more people. One said he was up in Aspen. 2 occurrences right here, just outside of Fort Carson, and on Cheyenne Mountain, Rampart Reservoir. So now I start looking at maps again, but now I want to see where the sightings are. And according to Meldrum, I'm going, okay, so what kind of territory are we talking about? Something this big, intelligent. I'm thinking probably the intelligence of at least a 12-year-old. A bipedal freaking ape man with the intelligence of a 12-year-old. Number one, that's scary enough. But so Meldrum, I'm thinking like 400 or 500 square miles, right? That's what this thing's going to have to range to be able to eat and survive. He's like, no, Jerry, more like 2,000. So
absolutely.
Quick synapse here. This is a map. Okay, I don't know how good you can see it. Can you see the triangle?
Yep.
Okay, that's 2,200 plus square miles.
Wow.
All right, that is Leadville to Bailey, which is where the Sasquatch outpost is, by the way. Jim Myers. I was going to say
you would pick
you can't get a hold of that guy. So, anyways, Leadville, Bailey, Fort Carson, and so what I did was I did the highest concentrations of sightings based on BFRO and other stuff that I could try to dig up. And holy crap. The 411 guy, Pike National Forest, they're still trying to investigate that one, how that crippled old man could disappear right there off the road. Now you got Monkey Creek. You got these crazy sightings outside of Victor over by Leadville. I believe that was also on that same program that HIERONYMUS people did. So now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, what are we looking at? Okay, Gigantopithecus, nah. Sorry, can't buy into that one. Can't that's too easy to. So now we got to go into, the Homo genus, the genus Homo sapien. You've got so many. Homo ancestor. Heidelbergensis, right? Now you're getting back into Meldrum's papers, right?
Right.
And then you've got, and I read Meldrum's paper on the Almasty. That one. Oh yeah. Now that one will get you thinking. This is a whole region of people, right? So now I'm moving more away from firsthand accounts, Billy Bob, and and all the stuff. And dude, I'm telling you right now, when you really research something, you investigate it like a cop, you're going to get a lot of fluff. I got a bullshit meter that is just spot on.
You got to wade through it for sure.
You got to wade through it. Right. But like Bindernagel said, you got to hear them out.
Mm-hmm.
Take all this into account, as a believer, and I'm not the religious fanatic type.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a believer. I worship the God of my own understanding. I know that, there used to be 9 types of human species discovered. Now we're up to 15. They're still making discoveries down in the Grand Canyon, out there in the desert. They're starting to have to rewrite. If you look at, there was a post by Michio Kaku. You know who that is?
Yeah.
Astrophysicist.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They're having to rewrite their damn timeline. And the more they're finding, the more we're realizing what we don't know. Now, here's my problem with modern science. If you're closed-minded to anything, you're not a scientist. If you're closed-minded to anything, you're not a researcher or a journalist.
Absolutely.
I'm a pragmatist, Jeremiah. Give me enough reason to suspect something. I'll put my bias aside and I'll take an honest look at it. Now, there was a guest you had on. I don't know if it was your last guest, but he's from Oklahoma. And he moved out to Colorado. He's out here now. I wish I could pull that episode up, but I would like to talk to that guy because evidently he's out here. I would love to sit down and because the way he was talking about the way he researched this stuff, and I want to give big props to your show right now because you have some really good, what I consider very level-headed people taking an honest look, not just jumping on board with everything that comes up. But, let's take an honest look at this.
Thank you.
So props to that. But yeah, I would love to talk to that guy. So I'm of Cherokee lineage, Cherokee and Welsh.
Yes.
My family comes out of northeastern Oklahoma. Cherokee originated in North Carolina area. That's where the main tribe is today. So now I start gearing away from more of the anecdotal evidence. All these tribes having a name for this thing. So I'm talking to the Cherokee, and they have, you call it folklore, you can call it, whatever. It's oral tradition.
Absolutely.
And that's how it exists. They talked about trading with this tribe, actually trading with them. And do your own research, you'll find it. When the Europeans came over, that's when it all stopped. Now I'm in Colorado, so we got the Ute, we got the Cheyenne, but the Northern Ute, there's several tribes of the Ute. The Northern Ute is what's occupied this area. So I get a hold of they call it the keeper of the secrets, is what they call that person. That's the oral traditions keeper. And she was gracious enough to talk to me for a few minutes. And I told her I'm a researcher. I'm researching things about, history in Colorado. This is a subject that came up. I kind of weaseled my way in there.
Right. Well, that's what you have to do.
but I got her to talk to me.
Yeah, there you go.
And I said, from what I'm looking at, it's the SASQUATCH or the SASQUATCH was the Ute name for this creature. She said it translates to the basket woman, which is ironic because if you go up into the Pacific Northwest, they also have the same tradition of the basket woman. And they would use that to keep their children in line, right? Because outside of, don't let the basket woman get you, these things were known to be cannibalistic. And if you go up into Mount St. Helens, we could talk for another 25 minutes about Mount St. Helens, the mountain devils, the skier. I mean, oh my God, forget about the cabin and the miners. What about the skier?
I've heard stories that I can't talk about.
Dude, I'm telling you.
What you're talking about, man. I can't talk about it because
I'm telling you, and the deeper you dig, the digger you deep, and the crazier it gets, and the more boxes it checks.
Oh, yeah.
It just gets stupider.
It's wild.
So I said, what about the male? She said, we don't say his name, which means I'm not included in that conversation.
Right.
She says, but we call him the guardian. And if the guardian shows himself to you, it's either a blessing or a curse, but he does it on purpose. She's talking about the big male. Now, when I was talking to that fella up there at RMSO, he said, because I called him back up because I talked to him a couple of times on the phone, told him what my intentions were. And I said, this is where I think they're at. Based on everything I've been studying for the last year and a half, this is where I think they're at. He says, Jerry, I think there's 3 families up there. He says, but you got to go when nobody's there. Now, here's the thing about these firsthand accounts, right? Okay, for one, there's been a lot of accounts off of Pikes Peak, right? One of my most interesting accounts was it's late summer. These guys are at the Summit House. Now, if you look on the backside of Pikes Peak, there's a couple of little lakes down there. There's a tree line, and this thing is hoofing it. It's exposed at the tree line, and it's hoofing it, and it's headed dead south. Now, where's it going? As an old tracker, as an old cartographer, the first thing I want to know is where's it going? What time of year is it going there? And why is it going there? Why would we be traveling that way? Because the experience in Green Mountain Falls was the same way. The thing was headed the same way, right? Now, outside of the fact that we have one of the largest elk populations in the country, so if you look from Bailey to Leadville in that area, well, duh, there's choke points, there's ridges, there's ambush points. It's a corridor, it's a highway system, all the way down to Green Mountain Falls, all the way down there to Fort Carson. Now, what's down in Fort Carson? Why would things be going that way? I'm asking myself. If I was out there, why would I be going that way? Well, number one, shit tons of water sources, lots of places to get around, easy to move around. Now, when you get down to that Fort Carson area, you're going down into Fountain, Security, Widefield. What would be down there? Because there's a lot of houses, there's a lot of military housing. And by the way, there are so many reports from ex-military, former military, current military about seeing shit down there. That gets even deeper.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll tell you what's down there, because I've lived here 23 years, turkey.
Really?
I've seen, is it a clutch of turkey? What's the plural for it? I've seen them 75 to 100 strong.
Wow.
Yeah. Makes sense to me. Checks another box, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Man.
So again, the deeper I dig, the digger I deep. You know? So one of the reasons I wanted to reach out to you is I am an independent guy. Sure. I don't need anybody to tell me. I don't want to be influenced by anybody else's opinion. That's why I launch on these little escapades. I want to gather as much information as I can. And here's the bottom line, Jeremiah. I don't believe in Bigfoot. I don't not believe in Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Where I'm at right now is I firmly believe that people are seeing something that's very real. And we live in a very strange world. Absolutely. Where all kinds of weird things happen. That, so this fall, and fall is the best time to do it. You got to get past hunting season. You got to get into that desperation. Oh gosh, what is that called again? Hyperphagia. The hunters have moved on. Snow's starting to set. Campers are gone. Everything's gone. But everything out there is going for that last ditch effort. Now we know how the elk move from higher elevation to lower elevation depending on the season. So from my chair, late fall is going to be the best time to get up there, start looking. And my deal is I'm going to get up there, probably stay about a week minimum, 5 days minimum, get as deep as I can, be as normal as I can, bring my guitar up there, bring my gear, just be a camper, laugh, have fun, maybe, toss a couple of, don't want to toss a couple apples around. That'd be stupid. But this is why I really wanted to reach out to you, because I want to talk to people in my region,
Okay. Yeah.
I want to get connected with somebody. The guy with RMSO, he's way up north. He's busy.
Yep.
Jim Myers, he's always busy, and he charges people to go out in the woods. Dude, I've spent my entire life in the woods. I'm not paying anybody to take me out in the woods.
Right. You're good.
Especially with a bunch of other people making noise, banging on trees and and hooping and hollering. Man, here's the deal. If I'm a potentially 9 foot tall, 700 pound higher primate, and I don't want to be found, the last thing I want is you beating on my front door.
Yeah, probably not a good idea, right?
So, based again on some of the researchers I've listened to, it makes more sense to just let them be curious. But at the same point, I got to walk into this as a hunter, as a tracker, okay, as a backcountry guy, understand the ridges, understand the choke points, understand the places where I can go, where maybe I can, I don't know, draw a little more interest.
Absolutely. There's a few questions I have for you, Jerry, that I have kind of made a mental note of along the way. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on some things. You mentioned Area X really quick. And then we didn't really get into a lot of it. Do you have what are your thoughts on Area X? I'm just curious.
Well, the Honebee stuff goes way back before the Patterson Gimlin stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
One of my best friends in the world is chief of police of a little town not too far from Ada, Oklahoma.
Really?
I'm not going to tell you what town or who he is, but he chuckles about the Bigfoot thing. But that guy I was talking about that I would really like to talk to, and if he listens to this podcast, please contact me. The one that lived back there, he was talking about Atoka, right? Atoka.
Oh,
yeah.
I know.
So
I know who
same guy. So he's throwing down these town names.
Yep.
I asked him. I said, "Hey man, anybody talk about Bigfoot?" Oh yeah, right down there at Tupelo store. She'll tell you all about it. She saw the Boggy Creek monster. And Boggy Creek runs right through Clarita, which is where I used to live. Upper Boggy, Lower Boggy, Boggy Creek monster. I used to hunt pigs down there because there's tons of old pecan groves down in those bottoms. And lots of pigs, lots of deer, lots of fish. It's a hunter's paradise back there. But he says, yeah, you talk to blah, blah, blah over the Tupelo store and she'll tell you all about it. So.
Wow.
So, yeah, the guy that was, from that area, from this Colorado, whatever your name is, please contact me. I'd love to sit down and have a cup of coffee, go over some notes, maybe get a strategy. Look, and again, I have zero interest in proving to anybody that this thing's real. If it's out there, I'd like to see a unicorn before I die. I don't know. Maybe I don't want to see it. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. Like, maybe
I want to hear it.
If you see it, then what does that do to your viewpoint of everything, right, Jerry? I don't know. I've thought of that myself. What does that do to my entire life paradigm?
Okay, so people talk about orbs.
Sure.
We're going to get weird here for a second.
All right.
When I was about 12 years old, I was living in Modesto, California at Ronald Court. And my mom was married to a guy. He had a couple of kids. We all lived there together. And I'm laying in my bed one night. And there was a big Cheap Trick poster on the wall. Used to love Cheap Trick.
Yeah.
But I'm just a kid. Closet doors open. I'm laying there in bed, just about to fall asleep, and I see something in the closet. Again, man, I'm nuts for talking about this stuff on a national podcast. It was greenish in color. It was probably the size of a large grapefruit. little bit bigger maybe.
Mm.
And it was there, and it kind of looked like an eye, kind of like a big, like a round thing with a dot in the middle. And it was just there. And it was like, it would kind of like close up.
Wow.
And then it would move and it would open up, it would close, and it would open, it would close. And that was one of the things that it scared me so bad. I ran and told my mom, and she said, "You're just dreaming." And I went back to the room. I shut that closet door, and eventually I fell asleep. But that happened. And I'll never forget that as long as I live. Okay. Me and my buddies were playing in the backyard one night, and we saw a star do things that stars shouldn't do.
What year is this?
Gosh, I'm 55. I couldn't have been more than 6. We're out in the backyard playing with lawn darts.
Okay, well, that also tells you if you're playing with lawn darts, that's a different.
We were playing with lawn darts that night. It was a summer night.
Okay.
And I remember my buddy going, "What's that?" And we all looked up, and this star was bouncing around the ball like a ball in the sky.
Wow.
Like Pong. We used to play Pong back in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it looked like. And then it shot off just like a falling star going backwards.
Oh man.
That happened.
That's wild.
Shit, man. I'm just gonna get off my chest. When I was raising my family in Oklahoma at a very old house, Clarita. Look up Clarita, Oklahoma. It's middle of nowhere. The house had an old woman, a ghost. Aunt Janet told me about it. Grandma Gail told me about it. We used to have this. I bought the house partially furnished, and there was an antique mirror in the dining room. And Janet said she would see the old woman. And Grandma Gail said she'd see the old woman in the mirror occasionally. You walk by it, and there she'd be. And man, you can call my. I'm going to sound so nuts right now. I swear. You can please. I'll give you my ex-wife's number. She can verify what I'm telling you. That house had turned over many times.
Mm.
It used to be on the old railroad right there. Used to be a migrant farm worker area. But my wife woke up one night. Stephen had just been born. He's in the bassinet. Patrick hadn't even come along yet. But she said she woke up and saw an old man in suspended overalls standing at the end of the bed looking at us.
Nah, dude.
And I said, "Well, what'd you do?" And she said, "I pulled the covers over my head, and when I looked, he was gone."
Wow.
And I'm going, "You sure you weren't just dreaming?" She's like, "I don't know, maybe." And then a little while after that, she woke up and she said the old man was bent over the bassinet looking at my son.
Oh, Jerry.
No,
Yikes.
I'm not. Man, please call my ex-wife and verify this, because I'm not making up stories here. And I'm not
saying you are, but I'm just
well, did he feel like it was bad, or was it? She's like, "No, I didn't feel like it was bad. It just freaked me out." Sometime later, I can't tell you how long, the girls are out shopping. I'm at the house alone. Again, at this time, I was working as a merchant marine. So I was on my 14 days off cycle.
Okay.
And I'm just tooling around the house. I'm walking through the living room. And Jeremiah, it's like I walked into somebody.
Oh.
And what I got was hi. What I got was hello.
Mm.
And that freaked me out. I was not scared at that point. Well, I was scared, but I was more just freaked out because my wife had already told me about this, Grandma Gail, and Janet was telling me about the old woman, and there were other stories about the property, and right then and there, I said, look, I don't want to see you. I don't want to know you. You belong in your world. I belong in mine. And if you show yourself again, if I even think you're around, I'm going to get a priest here. I'm going to exorcise you out of this house. And that was a stand I took.
Wow.
For the rest of the time at that house, which was another 7 years, I never had an experience. Candace never had another experience. I can't explain that. Okay. Now, fast forward to Colorado Springs. I used to be an electrician, used to do a lot of painting. In fact, my family's had a painting business forever. We're working on this house. God damn it. Shit. We're working on this house here in Colorado Springs. I was doing some texture work down in the basement. And there were wooden steps going down in this basement, this house. So here's the backstory on the house. The lady that hired us to do the work, this was her father's house. He had it built back in the 70s. She was born and raised in this house. No, it had been earlier than the 70s. I don't know. It's an older home. It's in an older neighborhood. And her and her husband are lawyers up in Denver. Her father had passed away. So now they're fixing the house up to sell it. So she hired me and my brother to go in there and do a bunch of work. And there's other contractors doing work in there. And people are kind of in and out. I'm down in the basement and I hear somebody walking down the stairs. There ain't nobody there. I figure, well, it's somebody upstairs. I hear doors closing, stuff, hitting the floor. I'm thinking, well, it's got to be other contractors. But there ain't nobody there. It's just me. My nephew used to work with us from time to time to make a little extra money. Oh, he must have been probably 16, 17 at the time. He's down there with me one day. We're working on this wall and we hear somebody come down the stairs again. He looks around the corner. He looks at me and his face is as white as a piece of paper. He says, "What the hell was that, Uncle Jerry?" I said, "Did you hear that? Please tell me you heard that." Because I've been hearing that for like a week.
Oh, man.
And I'm hearing stuff upstairs. So he finished up that day. He was like, "Yeah, I'm not going back. I'm not going back there." So one day I'm down there. I'm washing up my mud tools. I'm in the bathroom. There's a little bathroom right down in there. And Jeremiah, I don't know how else to say this. Something was right here at the back of my neck.
Really?
And it was evil.
Oh, boy.
And it was not happy. And it scared me so bad, I froze. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Whatever it was not happy that I was there. And I felt it through my core. And I threw my mud pan and my tools down in the sink. I walked out of the house as fast as I could. I was trying to say the Lord's Prayer. I was trying to speak out loud and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I was that scared. I called my pastor the next day. I told him what happened. And he was out of town. I'm like, "No, Larry, you got to come down here right now. And you got to be with me in this house, dude. Cause whatever that was not okay."
Wow.
And I'm a sober man. I'm not making shit up. Whatever that was. He said, "Jerry, you got, he says, you're a child of God. It has no ability to hurt you." And he told me, he says, "Next time you go back in there, say the Lord's Prayer out loud, address it." And that's what I did. Monday morning, I went back in there. I opened the front door and I said, You know, I'm a child of God, and you have no power over me whatsoever. Don't fail yourself again. This is going to get weirder, Jeremiah, and I'm telling you, man.
I was like, this can't get any.
No, it gets worse. It gets worse.
You definitely had. I can say you had some protection of the Holy Spirit going on.
There's no doubt about it.
Without question.
No doubt about it.
Continue, please.
So we finish up the job. She comes down from Denver to give us the check. We meet in the driveway. God, I wish I was making this shit up. My brother and her are talking. He's my brother. He's my older brother. He's the contractor. He's the big boss. And they're talking. They exchange the money. And I asked her at the end of the conversation, I said, can I ask you something? I said, do you guys ever hear any creaking, like somebody walking down the stairs is not there or something, weird? She's like, oh yeah, that's Walter.
Oh boy.
And I can't remember the name she said, but I'm just saying it's Walter because I'm looking at her. I'm going, are you serious? She says, oh yeah, no, he's always been there. He's a prankster. He opens and shuts doors. He, turns TV off and on. He's always been there. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, right? God, I wish I was making this shit up, dude.
Mm.
I told her about what happened to me in the bathroom downstairs. She's like, wow, that's weird. He's never been mean.
Oh man.
And I'm looking at my brother and are we having this conversation really? Did that shit really? I mean, Jeremiah, at some point you got to question your own sanity.
That's wild.
I talked to so up in Manitou Springs here, there's a lot of spiritualists and there's, a lot of old witchcraft that happened back in the day. Aleister Crowley has been up there.
Oh, yeah.
And,
right. Yeah.
No, we'll talk about Crowley. Holy shit. I did a deep dive on that guy. But no, I was talking to this lady and I was telling her about this stuff because who do you talk to about this shit, man? Right? Who do you talk to about this? It's not going to look at you like you're completely nuts. And she said, she didn't say I was a medium. She said I was something like, wish I could remember the word she used. She said that basically I'm a channel or something like that. It's like things from that side of the veil, will reach out to me. And I'm like, I don't want them to reach out to me. I'm not okay with that. I wish I could remember the word she used, but Crowley, Crowley said that these beings can move from their side to ours if they're summoned. They can do it at will. They claim to be angels, but they're not.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is so scary, Jerry. It's like people have to be careful with the stuff they mess around with.
I mean, it's more than scary. It's as a Christian, I've experienced the other side as well. I've experienced God's grace and things that I can't explain. Again, miracles. Once you've seen it so many times, you stop calling it a coincidence. There's no such thing as coincidence.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Definitely.
Once you open the door to that.
Yeah.
So there again, okay, circling around, sorry, we rabbit trailed big time there. Going back around to this, Jeremiah, at this point, I'm satisfied.
Fair enough.
At this point, I'm satisfied from the chair I'm sitting in. Homo neanderthalis was according to Science Today, was probably one of the last of the genus Homo that existed alongside Homo sapien.
Mm.
But here's the problem with Homo sapiens. We don't like anything to compete with us for food, territory, women, anything.
Nope, we sure don't.
So Science Today is pretty sure that the reason that Homo neanderthalis was driven to extinction was because of us. Based on 15 types that we know of, it is not, and I'm going back to Goodall on this one. When she was asked point blank on a talk show about Bigfoot, she said, I don't see any reason why it couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where I'm at on that whole deal. It checks all the boxes. There is another genus Homo. What is it? I don't know. There's the $64,000 question, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Big question mark on Homo question mark. There's no reason in my mind, in my research, they can't say that there was another. Maybe it was one that evolved. Maybe it was Homo erectus that evolved. I don't know, you know? And it saw what people were doing to people, and it said, you know what? We're just going to dive back a little deeper.
Mm.
Now, in my mind, that makes more sense than anything. It said, you know what? You Homo sapiens, you do what you do. We're just going to stay back here in the background. I mean, Daniel Boone shot a wahoo. Yahoo.
Well, yeah, yes, exactly.
He wrote about it. And so was he spinning a yarn? Daniel Boone, he spun some good yarns.
Yeah.
But he didn't seem to be, you know, messing around with that one because it involved his kid, Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh.
How many
amazing.
others? How many others? You want to go down the road of the giants? You know, we can talk about early Spanish explorers rounding the Horn of Africa, talking about giants, you know, South America. I mean, we could go down that road. So here's where I'm at. It's got to be, you know, some say a relic hominin.
Mm-hmm.
I can dig that. Something that, I mean, man, you know, and when you get into that category, we're talking about ultrasound, we're talking about mind speak, we're talking about the woo, we're talking about all kinds of crazy shit. Okay, let's check those boxes. And again, let's not look for reasons why it can exist. Let's look for reasons why it can't.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to do something unbiased, you have to look at it that way. Let's look at reasons why it can't. And brother, I'm here to tell you, I can't find a reason why it can't.
Absolutely.
You know, even up here in this region, Pikes Peak region, we have a very large, healthy black bear, mountain lion, black-tailed deer, elk, turkey, you name it, we got it. Wild edibles, all that shit checks out as well. Because you're not eating deer every day. You're grazing. You're grazing most of the time, right? We got wild edibles up here. The Ute not only lived up in this high desert community, up in these mountains, they thrived. They thrived like no other. And so did everything else up in those mountains. So why couldn't a 900-pound male, 600-pound female, 300-pound juveniles be running around up there? I don't have an answer for that.
I mean, Colorado has it's got the resources, no doubt, for large creatures like that. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. You mentioned you have a background of bushcraft way back. as a person who has done bushcraft before, what is your thoughts of when you see, I don't know if you've seen like pictures of stick structures, large sticks that are broken off. What are your thoughts about that as a person who has probably had experience with things like that? I would imagine doing bushcraft.
Well, number one, bushcraft, that's a northern thing. We never called it bushcraft as a kid. We called it survival. Soldier of Fortune magazine was on every comic book rack back in those days. Survival magazine. We just called it backcountry. You were going to one of two places in the woods. You're either going camping or you're going in the backcountry. And when you get back there, take that canyon I'm talking about. When you hike back far enough, you reach the edge of that canyon, it's probably 800 feet down to the Tuolumne River. You got to switch back your way down into there. And I'm talking about this very particular place where Blacks Creek dumps into the Tuolumne. You can see the granite tops of the backside of Yosemite from that saddle. That saddle was a waypoint, always a waypoint. Down that way, the river turns, but here's the deal, man. You get back that deep, and you don't hear much. About every 3 days, you'd hear a BLM plane, Bureau of Land Management plane, fly over. They would follow the concourse of the river. About every 3 days, a BLM plane would fly over. Outside of that, you didn't really hear much of nothing. And that's the whole point of being in the backcountry. You can hear yourself think back there. You hear everything that moves and breathes. You hear a pine cone fall 100 yards away. And, I remember hearing stuff back there. You attribute it to a deadfall. So the lefties way back when stopped them control burning that whole region, because the rich people from San Francisco would come up, build houses, stuff like that. And so they used to control burn back up in there because Yosemite and all that, right? They would have control burns. Well, they didn't do that. So it's log jammed. It's hard to work that country. It's hard to get through that country. Because of the deadfalls and the pine needles sometimes get 3 feet thick in certain gullies. You hear stuff back there. And not always it makes sense. The wind's not blowing, and yet you hear a deadfall. I remember hearing shit like that and just contributing it to, maybe one of those old burnt pines, finally toppled over for whatever reason. I know what everything sounds like. I had my first mountain lion encounter back there at the Blue Jay mine, and that scared the hell out of me. I fanned off 6 shots that day.
How close did that get?
Oh my God! I pulled up we had a hard rock mine. We had several claims. We had a placer claim, a high bank claim over by an old stamp mill, and we had this old hard rock mine called the Blue Jay. And I pulled up in there that day. Again, Donnie, Paul, Dale, they didn't want to go. They were all busy, so I just went up by myself. I just wanted to go hang out at the hard rock mine, and had an old Chevy Nova back in those days, old 4-door, turd brown Chevy Nova, and pulled up at camp, started unloading stuff, and a mountain lion. There was a little ridge just off to my left. And kind of went around that ridge to come into the mine, and a mountain lion screamed at me. I don't know if it was a female that had cubs. I don't know if it was just hunting right there, but there again, this place doesn't see human beings at all. And I had that Colt strapped to my right hip on a Buscadero rig, and I'll never forget it. I'm unloading my rucksack, starting to pull out the tent, and this thing screamed at me, Jeremiah, and I spun on my left heel, and I fanned off that pistol as fast as I could.
Oh, man.
And I screamed. I said, "That's what I sound like." That scared the shit out of me. That wasn't petrifying. That was just scared. So I'm just boulder hopping down the Tuolumne, because once you get down in that canyon, dude, this thing chokes up. It widens out in places, but most of the time you're just boulder hopping along the side of the river. And I see this old mine shaft where these guys had dug a pretty decent sized tunnel. And so I dive into it as usual, because I'm 24 and I have no clue, and I'm an idiot. Looking back on those days, I would do so many things different. Oh my God. But I go about 15, 20 feet into this cave, and that's where the light's starting to shade down, but the light's still on my back. And I see 6 pairs of eyes. One kind of big right here, and 2 little ones on either side. And I stopped and I looked and I said, "Back out."
Mm-hmm.
And I just slowly backed out. And I tell you what, I don't think I've ever jumped boulders so fast in my life to get away from that.
Man.
So many great memories back in those days. And the only one that I can say that was negative was that night.
Mm.
I spent probably better part of 5-6 years back in that country.
Wow.
Exploring everything I could possibly. I would run until my legs would give out. I found an obsidian waterfall about halfway up that canyon. I call it the obsidian waterfall. Black obsidian, volcanic rock, volcanic glass. And this thing had to have been at least 15 feet wide, probably 10 feet tall. Looked like lava had poured out. And you could see all the chips and all the broken arrowheads on the ground. Wow. Where whatever tribe, I know it wasn't the Miwok, but it might have been Miwok that occupied that territory, but there were so many things to see back there. Mm. That was probably one of the best times of my life, except for the tent creeper.
Right. That's a little story.
That was the only time. So I operated on quadrangles. Okay. Again, that was the Buckhorn quadrangle. Mm-hmm. It's a U.S. Geological Survey map. It's a topographical map with an engineer's compass and a topo. If you get lost, God bless you, bro. Mm-hmm. You deserve it. Back there. And with those maps, I ran so many different parts of that country. Yeah.
Wow. Jerry, there's some amazing stories tonight. It's just incredible. Thank you for sharing. I mean, your research, but also the incredible stories of your life. It's been amazing. I want to make sure. I remember you said earlier that you wanted people that were familiar with a certain region to reach out in a way, or you want to try to connect to those people, right?
I do. And again, I don't have a website. I don't have a crazy email. Contact me personally. You know? And I know I'm opening myself up to a whole lot of places where my bullshit meter is going to go off, but yes, I want people to contact me in this area, Pikes Peak region, Colorado Springs, Bailey, Leadville, Buena Vista. If there's somebody out there within the sound of my voice, please call me. Let's talk about this because I'm going up this fall.
Mm.
And here's the deal. Again, if you're 600-700 pounds and you don't want to be found, I really don't want to be going up there by myself.
Absolutely. Yep.
Now I'll go up armed to the teeth, but again, I'm not looking to prove to the world that Sasquatch exists. I don't care that anybody else understands this. I want to know.
Yeah.
I want to know.
Should the best way that they try to contact you would be by leaving a comment on the YouTube video, or are you providing a certain way of contacting, or what do we think?
You know what? I'm just going to throw it out there. Jerry.Lancaster@gmail.com. Just email me.
Perfect.
JERRY.LANCASTER@gmail.com. And please don't waste my time. If you're a serious researcher, not a Bigfoot researcher, if you're a Bigfoot researcher, that's fine. But I want to talk to people who want to know more. You know, there's too many weird things out in this world, Jeremiah.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I've experienced some weird things, and I don't know why I want to go find Bigfoot. You know,
It's one of the last great mysteries, you know?
If I can see a unicorn or hear a unicorn before I die, I think that would be a pretty cool deal. And at 55 years old, I'm in good shape. I can still get into backcountry. I haven't lost anything. So let's talk. Jerry.Lancaster@gmail.com. Jeremiah, thank you for hearing my crazy story.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, Jerry, and definitely keep in touch with anything else that you run into. But thank you so much for coming on, man.
Man, if I go up in the Lost Creek, up in the Pikes Peak, up in the San Isabels, if I get up there and actually experience something, you're going to be the first person I talk to.
I appreciate that, Jerry. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Man. And real quick, before we go, one last thing. If you're in Iowa and you would like to hear me give a presentation, I am doing presentations at the Earlham Public Library in Earlham, Iowa for their summer reading program. The first one is coming up soon on June 30th at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. I will be doing an hour presentation on how to start your own podcast. Also, on July 28th at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, I'll be doing a presentation on Bigfoot. If you're in Iowa, you probably will definitely want to hear this presentation, as be talking about Bigfoot in general for the first 15 minutes, then 15 minutes or so on Bigfoot in Iowa. I'll be talking about a lot of stuff that I haven't really shared before. And then we'll see where the last 15 minutes go. Yeah, there's some stuff Bigfoot in Earlham, so you won't want to miss that. And then there'll be a Q&A at the end for 15 minutes. But no cost for this. It's just part of the Earlham Public Library Summer Reading Program. Again, June 30th, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time for the podcast one, and July 28th, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time for the Bigfoot one. Earlham Public Library in Earlham, Iowa. We'll see you there. If you'd like to make a special one-time donation to Bigfoot Society, you can head on over to our Buy Me a Coffee page. And I'd like to shout out someone who has bought us a coffee this last week, Mr. Waylon W. Colburn. His message is, "I love the show. I used to listen to..."
Insert the name of another popular Bigfoot Encounter podcast.
"But they never have any new stuff. Keep up the good work, my friend." Well, I appreciate that, Wayland. If you'd like to buy me a coffee as well, you can head on over to the show notes and find the link in there. Become a supporting member of the Bigfoot Society podcast by going to www.patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society and receive extra episodes and early ad-free episodes as well. If you've got a personal Bigfoot encounter you would like to submit for me to share on the podcast, please head on over to www.bigfootsocietypodcast.com. There you'll find the Share Your Bigfoot Encounter form a little lower on the page, and please take a minute to share as many details as you can. Please state if the encounter is anonymous or what name you would like associated with the encounter. And as always, thanks for listening.